Well, it's a new year, and Alberta politics is a passion for many people. The battle between Jason Kenney's UCP and Rachel Notley's NDP is one thing, but the battle for conservative ideas is going strong. And it doesn't look like that front is simmering down at all. To join me to talk a little bit about Alberta politics is Val Olson. Val, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Hal.
Now, Val, you have a unique perspective on Alberta politics. You're a radio personality in Medicine Hat for many years, but you also ran for the Wildrose Party in Medicine Hat. In the end, both you and Blake Peterson of the Tories lost to the NDP candidate, Robert Weiner, back in 2015. Now, that was kind of a shocking turn of events, considering in Alberta it's been very conservative and shocking for many residents of Medicine Hat. How have you seen politics change across southern Alberta because of that battle for power on the right side of the political spectrum?
Well, I would say that principled people realized that they would need to step it up a bit for sure, because you can't just, go to the vote box, put your vote in, and walk away. They recognized that the left, they are well funded, they're organized, and they are doers. And so that showed that we're going to have to take it up a notch, and we're going to have to get out and not just vote, but be accountable for our vote. So definitely we're seeing mobilizing that took place and just a growing of the conservative brand. I think that really identifying what it means to be a conservative and the values and morals and integrity and things that go along with it, that brand of conservatism has just grown across Alberta.
Now, Danielle Smith was the leader of the Wildrose Party before you ran. Many felt that when she crossed the floor to the Tories, that was it for her Alberta political career until now. Now there's been talk that she may make a bit of a comeback and take a shot at the UCP leadership. What are your thoughts?
Well, she definitely made some mistakes, and that hurts that took place is real because there was a betrayal. The people felt betrayed when she didn't go procedurally through the steps of talking to the people, the Albertans, and saying, hey, what do you feel about this? She really, made a decision that I'm sure she looks back on and says, I could have done things differently. But you still have to deal with that mess. I mean, this is a conservative family, and there's a wound there, and that wound has not healed. She's an excellent broadcaster, and I think she's found her niche there. She's very good at what she does. But I think her shot at leadership is best suited where she is, behind the microphone and giving Albertans a voice.
Jason Kenney's leadership review is coming up this spring. Many people within the party say, you know what, Jason Kenney is still the strongest leader to take on Rachel Notley in the NDP. There's nobody really strong enough. I mean, Brian Jean is, seeking the by-election win there in Fort McMurray. But what are your thoughts, though? Who could basically be as strong as Jason Kenney to help lead our province moving forward?
Well, our lot in life is not the best of the worst representation. And that's what we've been given with Jason Kenney. It was basically, put out there in front of us as this is the best, this is what you get. And now it's almost like you're stuck with him. Well, I don't think so. The people are in charge. The people, the voters, are the bosses. And we need to stand up and be accountable. And I mean, you don't have to look very far at all of the mistakes Jason Kenney has made. He's extremely arrogant when it comes to owning his mistakes as well. And that's not sitting well with the people. The report card is just showing F, 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 F. And eventually he's going to fail.
Now, what about some of the other political parties on the right? Do you think perhaps as they increase in popularity, including the Alberta Wildrose Independence Party, that's not good for the UCP, splitting the right vote?
Well, what are we splitting? I mean, we need real conservative representation. This false flag that's being flown by Jason Kenney. And what I mean by that is he says one thing that sounds conservative on the outside, and then he does the exact opposite. And he's flying that flag and running on these things. And that is wrong. And it's put us into the position of we need actual representation that are real conservatives. So their values must be identified. And I think that's where the Wildrose Independence is growing out the gate. They're being very upfront about what they stand for and what they're going to achieve. And you don't always need a title of leader to make things happen. And I think that if some of these right-wing parties continue to voice what they're going to do, those initiatives are just going to to wake up more Albertans, and you're just going to see it grow.
Some people look at Jason Kenney as being a red Tory, similar to Aaron O'Toole with the federal Conservatives. How do you see it right now? Is there a place for social conservatives with today's conservative parties?
I think we have to start dropping the titles, and we've got to start actually evaluating what these people are doing. Aaron O'Toole, Jason Kenney, yeah, they are two peas in a pod, and it's not a conservative pod. They push globalist policies. So why are we allowing them to do these things under the conservative banner? And Maxime Bernier has really addressed that. But on the localist of levels, you don't have to be a Maxime Bernier or someone with a name. You can just be an average citizen and start calling out some of the actions of these leaders and say, this is not conservative whatsoever.
The Wildrose Independence Party said recently that 38% of Albertans actually favor independence from Canada and independent Alberta. Now, some people say that's a great idea. You know, we can control ourselves. We'll have our provincial police force, like what Kenny's trying to do. But then other people say it's a terrible idea. How are we going to get our products to Tidewater? What are your thoughts about an independent Alberta?
I love the word independent. I mean, it just speaks grown up and in charge of making your own decisions. So, who wouldn't want that? I mean, that's a good thing. And we need to see that. I mean, when you've got government overreach to the point that you're losing freedoms by the day, come on, who wants that? We are a free country. And so independence is a good thing, every which way I look at it, Helen.
Now, the left side of the political spectrum, Val, doesn't seem to really have an issue when it comes to fragmentation and independent Alberta. Do you think this would draw more voters to the NDP?
You're right. The NDP is a machine. They are well organized, well funded, and they're really good at getting people out to do the stuff that they want to get done to get power. So we need to look at that model. We need to look at that method, and we need to learn from it. Never be afraid of information and what your opponent is doing. I say, look at all the information, vet it, and then, be inspired on your own 2 feet to go out and do something for the conservative brand. And also, we need to identify what it means to be conservative. I am a principled person. There are many principled people across Alberta. There is more of us, but we've got to start having these conversations. And it's just like this, talking to you, Hal, and being given the opportunity to share what our values are. That's what we need more of. We need everyday Albertans to start speaking up. That's what it's going to take.
Val, Alberta Conservatives really need a united voice at the polls as we head into the next provincial election next year. The UCP and Premier Jason Kenney have taken a bit of a hit when it comes to their popularity, but in all honesty, during the pandemic, a lot of political leaders have, and a lot of parties. What, in your opinion, will it take for the UCP to really rebuild its image as we head into the provincial election next year? Will it start with the economy?
It can start with the economy, absolutely. But to be a conservative, we are morals-based people. So if the UCP wants accountability, they need to sit down with someone like yourself, Hal, or go in front of the camera, and they need to take their calendars out starting with January of last year and look at all of the mistakes they made. And that is the only way to rebuild trust. Or they need to sit at a table and they need to find the people that are creating solutions, the everyday Albertans, not the elitists, not the entitled, but everyday tax-paying, freedom-loving Albertans, and listen to what they have to say. And together, that's how the UCP could look at building trust. But to date, that's not what I'm seeing from that party.
What do you think people need to be looking for when it comes to having a very strong premier?
Well, you need someone with grit. You need someone with determination. You need someone who doesn't pander. You need someone who has a spine, who's able to stand up, call it like it is, say it like it is. And they need to have a vision for Alberta. Without a vision, what does the Bible tell us? Without a vision, my people perish. And so it's so important that we have a visionary at the front that is speaking truth and life and economic growth and recovery into our province, not more government control. And that's what we're seeing in Jason Kenney. So it's really important that we have a visionary who, has great ideas and has a comeback.
So what, in your opinion, will be the focus for Rachel Notley and the NDP heading into next year in the provincial election to try and unseat the UCP and Premier Jason Kenney?
Well, I think that we're going to see her do what she does best. She's approachable. I wouldn't be at all surprised that it would be easier for me to sit down with Rachel Notley and talk about issues that Jason Kenney skirts around and just won't talk about because he's scared. He's scared to have conversations. She's not. So he's going to have to get out of his little shell and he's going to have to get into the trenches with the people and start having hard conversations. And I would be an excellent Albertan to start with because I'm talking to many moms, and there's many moms just like me that Jason Kenney seems to be afraid of. And when you have a politician who's afraid to talk to people that he doesn't, maybe he doesn't agree with certain things I say, but he ostracizes his base of conservative voters. And I think Rachel Notley recognizes that. And so that's where I'm seeing her work her way into the conservative circle and talking and that's where it starts. If you've got a leader who's afraid to talk to the people, it's not a good sign.
Apparently, there's an initiative for our province, Alberta, to join the United States, become the 51st state. That's not really a new idea. What can you tell us about this initiative, Val?
Well, I can tell you that the initiative has legs. I'm talking to some of the organizers behind the scenes, and they're bringing people out in the freezing cold. I mean, it's cold in Alberta right now, and people are still coming out in droves to hear the message of freedom and liberty. And they're addressing what's going wrong in Alberta and saying, hey, maybe the solution is to join and become the 51st state of the United States of America. And the engagement that I'm hearing from everyday Albertans across Alberta is huge. I mean, the engagement is big. And so when you see that, again, independence, that's the word that's creeping in. People are looking for their independence.
Now, in the United States, Turning Point USA had a recent week-long event, and some said they were shocked to see the large number of young people in attendance, teenagers, people in their 20s as well, and many people attended at Medicine Hat too. Do you think there's kind of a shift in the mindset towards more conservative values?
Isn't that exciting? That's so exciting. That means that this next generation is thinking back on the morals and values that were instilled from their parents. And they too are coming into their independence and they have good heads on their shoulders. And it's not just all about government entitlements, government handouts, or government control. They understand that freedom is not free. So I think this is a really good thing. I'm not surprised that it's Medicine Hat and my home community because we have a lot of real free thinkers and just very, very impressionable young people there that want to be part of the conversation. So I'm really excited and encouraged by that news.
So what do you think that people can do to really engage with their political processes here in Southern Alberta?
I think that they have to have hard conversations, and I think that you can't give up. I think that you have to take it up a notch. If you call your politician's office and you can't get them on the phone, don't give up. Across Alberta, we're community based, and most people know where their politicians live. Don't be afraid when you see them shopping locally at stores to go up to them and say, hey, I want to talk about this, 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 and that. Why don't you come into my home, sit at my table, and talk around the table and be real and be honest? And another thing you consider doing is when you get their attention, record your conversations with them and then share it with your community. This is a great way to grow conservatism, to show who the real true conservatives are and who the fake and phonies aren't. And it's a way to gain some numbers, gain some traction. And before you know it, you can start conducting your own polls and you'll be able to have your own data. And that's when you know you have authentic and real data that matters that you can count on.
Val Olson is a former Wild Rose candidate from Medicine Hat and has a true passion for politics. Val, thanks a lot for joining us today from Arizona.
Thanks, Hal.